live on. Maybe I lied.
It says we're live.
Does it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. There we go. You want to tweet that out?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay. You can start recording, Ted, if you want to.
I am recording.
Dex, you recording?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm going to record on that. There's 18 different ways to record this because we've lost so many episodes before. Okay. Let's go. Welcome to the One Take Podcast, episode 52. 52? 52? Yeah, sure. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. We had our 1 year anniversary last 2 weeks, and that was a 3.5 hour extravaganza. We promise we won't keep you that long. Hopefully.
Yeah, no, we're not doing 3.5 hours. No.
We are joined by at TedVid on Twitter. Ted joining us all the way from Colorado. Doing the Social Network this week, a special episode considering what we think of this movie. Ted, thank you for joining us, man. We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about it. This is one of my favorite movies too, so I'm pumped to jump in with you guys.
Well, speaking of social networks, I don't want to like dox you or anything, but you work for a social network, so this is sort of like a like I don't know what the interesting commentary, I guess.
The most qualified guest we've ever had for any episode.
Well, I'm happy to join. I will not be disclosing anything that I have, under wraps in some NDA, but I'm happy to chat plenty about Twitter and where I work and any questions you have. But I'll tell you if I can't answer that question.
Ooh,
gun to your head. The Twitter mafia is holding you silent. We get it. Big Twitter.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
Jack Dorsey has you in a cave. Just more videos.
Right. Ted, so what we do here, more videos. So what we do here is it basically real simple, just going to review the movie, and we'll probably end up just talking shit about it. Unfortunately, was what we do with most movies. But this movie is so good that it's going to be hard to, but then we'll give it a letter grade and so on and so forth. But other than that, how we doing, guys? I cleaned my apartment. That's what I did today.
Blessed.
So
you've been running a lot recently. You're a marathon man now.
My legs and butt hurt just for those. I don't know how to fix it. By not running, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, stop doing that. It's bad for you.
Ted, you said you were cleaning couch cushions today. Today's good. Good day.
Yeah. No, we got a new couch in our living room, so we got to move the old couch to my office, and we cleaned the cushions in the meantime. But some big news on that front. They delivered the wrong couch initially, so it was really fun to unwrap that, discover it was the wrong couch, repackage up a couch, and then have them deliver another couch that was actually ours. So that was fun.
How do you repackage a couch? I'd be like, nah, y'all just gotta come get this. I'm not.
That's pretty much it. That's pretty much what happened. Is like I put the box back together with some tape, and it was like it fits in this box again. Good luck getting it out. So that was it.
We live in a crazy time. You can return a mattress you've already slept on. Yeah. People really want that. Dex, how we doing?
I'm good, man. No complaints. I'm just really excited to talk about this movie. This is one of my favorite films of all time. Like, this is the movie that got me into like the Oscar race and thinking about movies like on a deeper level than just like watching it the one time and forgetting about it completely. So I am super pumped to talk about this movie instead of the boring ass shit we were going to talk about, which was The Little Things.
Oh my God, that movie. I still think we got to talk about that movie. That movie sucked. That movie was so bad. That movie made me so mad too. If you're wondering, Jake isn't here. He's dealing with some family stuff, but he will be back with us next week. So do not fret. He's not gone forever. Ted, let's start with you, man. Give it a letter grade and what do you think about it initially, and then we'll get further into it.
Yeah, so this movie, I mean, I don't know if there is a letter. It's like, I mean, maybe triple A, maybe where it belongs, A plus plus. So it's one of those films that looking back, I believe that year it was the same year that King's Speech won Best Picture,
Right.
and I remember at the time thinking, I still think that this is the movie that, speaking of the Social Network, that we'll remember going forward, and I think that that's proven correct. It's really hard to top what Fincher and Sorkin did with just like putting this together, and I don't know how else to grade it other than top notch. I think it's the movie of the decade, and it came out in 2010.
It's a very good point. I mean, this is one of those movies that when we look back at like film history, they're going to be like, well, The Social Network in the early 2010s, and people are going to be like, but yeah, it's true. It
Yeah.
is just that. I don't know. It just is that movie. Dex, he said AAA. This is one of your favorites. Of course, this is on Netflix right now. So if you haven't seen it, which I don't know how, if you're our age and you haven't seen this movie, this was like, for me and you, Dex, this was like our, I don't want to say Godfather or anything, but it was like our intro into film or cinema or what have you, like because of kind of our age range and how this coincided with us, like growing up.
Yeah, this was baby's first prestige film right here.
Right.
Like, for all of us, like mid 90s kids, we were like teenagers coming into 2010. We were on Facebook, we had been on MySpace, et cetera, knew a little bit about it. And then we went and saw this movie and we were like, oh, you can do that. Like I didn't realize that you could make a movie so badass with like so little that actually happens in it. Like there's not any like
It's
action.
a deposition.
Yeah, it's a bunch of court depositions, arbitration meetings, shit like that. There's no like real fights or anything like that. Like it's just people talking really fast at each other, but it's a wild ride the entire time. Like the dialogue is perfect, the score is perfect, the cinematography is perfect, and it's an interesting story. It has everything that you can want. Ted's right. It's AAA. It's like one of my top 5 movies of all time. Personally, I love this movie.
I hadn't watched it in some time, but it is one of those ones that the YouTube algorithm will like spit up. Like, did I accurately answer your condescending question speech? Like that will come up, or if you're, or he's wired in, like you better lawyer up, asshole. That speech comes up all the time on YouTube. If you've just like watched movie clips like I do on YouTube, that the algorithm knows. But this baby's first cinema. So that's a very good way of putting this, because it's so influential in especially I said the other day in the group message, I think this is the peak. This is the peak of Fincher. It's definitely the peak of Jesse Eisenberg, and it's the peak, maybe the peak of Sorkin. And it all three together made their magnum opus. And that's this movie. And the fact that I think now looking back in retrospect, like we were saying, people are just going to remember this movie. I think though this movie holds a little different, because I hadn't watched it in a long time, holds a little different weight now. Kind of awkward.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier. This movie feels kind of quaint now, considering some of the problems and stuff we're dealing with on social networks. Like, it's a story about like, oh, he stole the idea for, I don't know, making MySpace exclusive for college kids. But it's like, yeah, now we're talking about election fraud and insurrections and deplatforming the president. Like, we're in a whole different world now with
social networks, and it's just such a weird thing that we're doing now. But it's such an interesting portrayal, and it's such a riveting story that we sit here and we just watch people like argue over who gets more billions. Okay,
they did something incredible here, man. It's timeless. It'll never go away, even though, like we said, the story feels kind of outdated a little bit now. Like we're dealing with different problems. The world has moved on a little bit. It's like, damn, man, this movie is still incredible to this day.
And almost go ahead, Ted.
No, I was gonna say, I do think that's kind of, it's a poignant thing to note that there's so much more going on now, obviously in the social media platform world. I think a movie like this maybe at the time isn't as well received because it doesn't understand, the culture at the time didn't quite understand just how impactful and how changing this was going to, how much this is going to change society. So you look at this now and you're like, well, this is only just like scratching the iceberg of like all the stuff to come. I mean, this is before Mark Zuckerberg is in front of Congress, so it's definitely interesting to look at it through that lens. One note on that, by the way, and I just from the social network side of things, it's still really fascinating to me because Facebook has started 2004, ish, or in that range. And when you think about it, that's like 17 years old. So what I'd like to always say is like, we're all still like 17 years old now online, and not all of us were the most mature at 17. So I'm hoping that we slowly mature over time and get to be beyond a bunch of 17-year-olds on social networks.
That's such a good point, though, because I was looking at it last night. I had a couple drinks and I started the movie, and I was sitting there just kind of reminiscing about, I joined Facebook in 2009 and I was, 15 years old and yada, yada, yada. And then I looked at it, I was like, wait, how fucking old is Mark Zuckerberg? Mark Zuckerberg's 36. Like, it's just like he has $90 billion and he's 36. And in the grand scheme of things, you're just sitting there going like, there is so much more left of this story that hadn't even been written. And the whole thing about this movie is like basically taking place when the guy's like 25. Probably.
I mean, he was still in college, so he was younger than that, I'd say.
Yeah. And so it's just, well, I mean, the story type, but I'm talking about like the depositions and stuff when he's like kicking everybody out of the company and whatnot. Like, sure, I guess like he's like 22, 23. It's such an interesting look. And it's like a perfect time capsule of the era too, from the cultural wasteland that was 2004 to 2010. I feel like we were talking about that last night as well. Don't go and look at my old Facebook profile pictures. You don't have to do that. But no, this movie is an A+. Let me just real quick go over what critics and stuff say about this movie. Should have done this at the very beginning, but The Social Network came out in 2010, has a 7.7 on IMDb, which is kind of interesting. I feel like this would be rated one of the higher movies of all time, but it's not. As a Harvard student, Mark Zuckerberg creates a social networking site that would become known as Facebook. He is sued by the twins who claimed he stole their idea, and by the co-founder who was later squeezed out of the business. It was directed by David Fincher, writers Aaron Sorkin, based on the book The Accidental Billionaires by Ben, I'm going to butcher this name, Mesrich. Stars Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, Justin Timberlake, Rooney Mara. Anybody who went on to be famous probably was in this movie. Everyone's favorite cannibal, Armie Hammer. And then allegedly, but not allegedly. And Rashida Jones also has a really big role in this movie.
Shout out to Brenda Song one time.
Oh, yeah. Disney Channel star Brenda Song. Just going for it.
Just never working again, ever.
Yeah. I thought this movie was rated R. That's rated PG-13. And it made a pretty good amount of money on only a $40 million budget, $224 million worldwide gross on a $40 million budget. Like I said, this was, it has a 95% on Metascore, on Metacritic. So that is one of the highest I think I've ever seen. It won Best Writing by Aaron Sorkin, Best Achievement in Film Editing, and Best Achievement in Motion Picture Original Score for Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which is crazy because that's just Nine Inch Nails winning Academy Awards. And it was nominated for Best Picture of the Year, Best Performance by Jesse Eisenberg, David Fincher, Best Achievement in Cinematography by Jeff Cronenweth, and Best Achievement in Sound Mixing as well. But yeah, it's some would say it was snubbed. I like the King's Speech. Maybe that's just like
all right. Theater. We gotta have the conversation. The King's Speech
is it Best Picture.
The King's Speech is good. I hadn't watched it until like a couple years ago for the first time. I was like, let me finally watch this movie so I can know what I'm talking about when I have this debate. But it's good. You can't really knock it. It's well made and all that, but it's no Social Network, man. Like it's not gonna stand the test of time like this. Like we're not gonna. It's not like Ted said. It's not something we're gonna be thinking about. We'll just have to like look up who won the Oscar over the Social Network one year and be like, oh yeah, it was King's Speech.
It was classic Oscar fodder. I mean, it was theater nerd. That's why I was like, I was big into theater, and I was sitting there going like, oh, this is what acting is, and it does have incredible acting. And I think it has better acting than The Social Network, truth be told. But yeah, when you go back and you look at it, we're gonna be like, oh, did Social Network not win Best Picture? Just like one of those, like when Saving Private Ryan didn't win, and Shakespeare in Love won. It's the same thing.
Yeah, everybody's got to look it up and be like, oh yeah, Shakespeare in Love, that happened.
Yeah, I feel like for me, if you in watching it again, it's In the Hall of the Mountain King, that series of when they're rowing the crew again in that competition in like London. That alone is like, all right, this is the best movie of the year.
Yeah.
That's like a mic drop if there ever was one in the middle of a movie. I do have a question for both of you, though. I hope that that's appropriate.
Yeah.
No.
So in the
No,
current in the world that we know to exist now, would this movie be better if there were two vampires in it?
Two vampires? You meaning two?
I mean, I'm just saying, would it be better?
Like in reality, if they were actual vampires, or if
I'm just saying, where's the plot headed?
Yeah. I mean, if the Winklevoss twins, instead of going to lawyers or to the Harvard school president or whatever,
they tried to suck his blood.
If they just literally went and tried to eat Mark Zuckerberg, and that was what the movie about, I'm in. I'm in.
Mark Zuckerberg, Vampire Hunter, the movie.
I mean, it sells itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just like Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter. That the whole thing with Army Hammer, and definitely after this movie, and they've been trying for a decade to make Army Hammer a thing.
He just looks like he should be a big movie star. I think that's what it is. Everybody just sees his face and it's like, yeah, that guy should, like, I don't know, be doing multi-billion-dollar franchise movies or whatever. And then he just plays the same old, like, rich, arrogant white guy in every movie.
Yeah. At the very least, he should be getting like superhero roles and things in like the MCU, but
yeah,
I think it tells you something that he doesn't have a role. I was going to actually bring that up. The fact that he doesn't have a role in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it says something.
At the very least, he should be Chris Evans. Obviously, people know now he's a weirdo, so throw that out the door. But like, yeah, at the very least, like,
yeah, they saw Henry Cavill's audition for Superman, and they were like, yeah, we like this guy better than Armie Hammer.
And shout out to the guy. I didn't know that it wasn't a twin for forever. That's how dumb I am. I was just like, wait, what did you call it? The best
fake twin role since The Parent Trap. Like, there's no other comparison that comes close. It's Armie Hammer and Lindsay Lohan, the only two fake twins that ever exist.
Which, by the way, they're a match made in heaven.
Oh no!
All right, sorry, I've derailed this too far.
No.
We need that movie though. We need the movie where Chloe, like, I don't remember what her name is, Hallie and whatever. They meet the Winklevoss twins.
6'5", and there are two of me. Just like the fakest deep voice of all times.
one of my favorite like scenes in this movie. I love that scene so much. Also, how different would the world be if instead of like going through all the shit that they went through, they really did just hire the Sopranos to beat the shit out of Mark Zuckerberg with a hammer? Like, how different is the world now?
Well, half the fake memes that you see wouldn't be spread around, so there's that. But who knows? Who's to say? So yeah, this has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes, 86% audience score. I think critics definitely do like this movie more than I feel like people do, surprisingly, but or hold it in high regard. I think it's going to still take a little bit of time for people to be like, oh yeah, that was the movie. of that decade. 2010, man. It's just incredible work. Flawless, if we're being honest. We are at the very end of this, just so you know, going to rate best mid-2000s websites, by the way. So that's going to be fun. The thing about this movie is that, for me, just Mark Zuckerberg isn't like this. We know from Capitol here, we know from hearings in front of Congress that this guy is just not. I think Jake called him his least favorite robot. Shout out to Jake. So, like, from hearings in front of Congress, we know that and it's a brilliant portrayal by Eisenberg, but it just seems inaccurate now that we know what that guy is. And shout out to Mark Zuckerberg for just not what he should not have been the head of his company still. Just you do not need to be the public face of your company. You don't have to. You have $90 billion. You don't have to.
He should have given that role off to somebody else years and years and years ago. Because, like we said, he's a robot. He's just strange. He feels inhuman, like watching him talk or make videos. It's like somebody trying to imitate what they see other humans do.
Hold on, I got a video for you.
Like slightly failing. Like he's almost there. He's like 90% of the way there, but it's like that last 10% is just missing. It's something
forgot to upload the Charisma mod. Didn't download it right. Hold on 1 second. All right. So this is the video that I shared earlier. Gonna share the screen. This is the most natural, authentic video on the internet.
Yeah.
Or him with the smoked meats thing.
Smoking meats.
Ted, have you seen the picture of him on the surfboard?
Yes, I have.
Not gonna lie, that is the funniest photo on the internet. Anyway, enough about Mark Zuckerberg, but about the movie. Like, do you remember watching this for the first time? Like, because I don't know if I watched it in theater. Like, I just don't remember. But I remember being blown away by it when I eventually did see it.
Yeah, I watched it in theaters for the first time. I don't remember why my parents wanted to see that movie, but I was like, I got nothing else to do. I'll just go watch this movie. And then I was like, whoa, that was amazing. Oh my God. What about you, Ted?
Yeah, I believe I think I ended up seeing it twice in the theater, which is not, I don't do that for very many movies, but it just stood out so much. I was actually really looking forward to it. I was very interested in what was going on in that, like in that whole story. It happened, like sometimes you catch that movie or that story that's happening, like right at the time that you decided to take a deep dive into it. Suddenly you're like, wait, they're making a movie or a TV show or something about, like about this. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of happened for me with this movie. So I thought it was, it was definitely really, really awesome to see. I remember just like, even from the get-go, that initial opening sequence in the bar with the back and forth conversation between Zuckerberg and I'm blanking on her name. Yeah, Erica. And it's just so, it so encapsulates everything that's going on for both of for particularly Zuckerberg, but for like, you kind of look at Erica as the outside world looking in on this movie. And then you've got Zuckerberg being like, no, there's something different. I'm going to like do this and kind of achieve it at all costs.
She is, and it's a very good choice by Sorkin to write her in, like, because I don't know if she's a real person, but it was a very good choice by Sorkin to write in somebody that was like the audience's conscience, I guess. She's kind of the barometer for how you're supposed to feel about this guy. And now with a 2020, like in 2010, sort of the stuff that he writes about her and the way that he treats her and how he goes about handling relationships and stuff, it all kind of is played off in the background. But now in hindsight, looking at it, like, she's very accurate about everything that she says and how she handles the whole situations within this film, and basically said like you're gonna die alone is basically how she treats him, and it is sort of an interesting character to put into the movie.
Yeah, for sure. We were talking about how Mark Zuckerberg just kind of feels like not quite all the way normal. Like he seems kind of off. And they do that. They set up that same kind of thing in this movie in the opening scene, just in a different way. Like he seems to just lack empathy instead of just lacking like the ability to connect with people like he does in real life. But Mark Zuckerberg is like, or Jesse Eisenberg's performance, he just feels like, wow, you really didn't learn how to like be a person who like cares about other people's feelings or like takes anything into account other than just what you want in the moment right there. And obviously that whole thing kind of plays off in the rest of the movie. So it's just really cool how they set up just extremely quickly. This is who this Mark Zuckerberg is, and then he is that all the way through the movie, and it just like builds and builds and builds.
And they make him extremely cold too,
Yeah.
which I don't know if he is in real life or not or whatever. I mean, we're talking about the movie and not necessarily his real life, but like they make him extremely sort of cold is basically the word that I would use for
just
it.
a dick.
Yeah, just an asshole. He's an asshole
Sucks.
within the movie, but someone you wouldn't hang out with in real life. And it's a very interesting way of going about that. The thing that is interesting, Ted, and you said like you were digging deep into it when it came out. This came out relatively quickly when Facebook was still coming. 2010, Facebook hadn't even reached was reaching sort of its peak. And I guess that's tough to say because more and more people are being added on Facebook every single day. But I had just joined Facebook in what I said, 2009. And this comes out in 2010. That's such a strange how quickly it's like if somebody came out with the GameStop movie about the Wall Street stuff next year.
Yeah.
Hey, I mean, I feel like they've done stuff like what was that movie that that Clint Eastwood directed just a couple of years ago that was about those terrorists on the train. They used the actual soldiers. I'm blanking on it.
Yeah.
That was
I
like
forget what it's called,
it's like quick too. I feel like the hilariousness of like capitalism jumping in so quickly to make a buck off of this.
Yeah.
Talking about capitalism in this instance is really interesting.
It's so crazy to me how quickly that this is turned around and just how old everyone was and everything and at the height of their powers. But this plays out kind of like a Fincher crime thriller, but nothing happens. Like we've been saying this entire time. It's a movie where nothing really happens. People get rich. Mark Zuckerberg loses friends and loses a little bit of money. But I think the implication is that we all know how big this thing is. And I think that's an interesting thing going into a movie is knowing what you're actually watching in real time. And that's kind of interesting because you don't get you get that in retrospect with like war movies and things like that. Like I said, Saving Private Ryan, like, how big of a deal D-Day was and everything, like not comparing the two, but it's the only time you get retrospective on a historical event that you have sort of I don't know what the term is, a 10,000 foot view on or whatever. But
yeah, it's weird how like we all watched this movie and like obviously it's a biopic, so at the end they give you like and they all went on to do blah blah blah,
right?
And it's like yeah, we know what Mark Zuckerberg went on to do. Like we're literally going to go home and get on Facebook and talk about watching this movie. Like we're still very actively a part of all of this.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you think about the performances in this? Because I mean, obviously we've talked about Eisenberg a little bit. It's a very interesting portrayal. I think unfortunately, I think he's sort of he's just now Mark Zuckerberg, unfortunately. And this is kind of who he is in films, but just talking a little bit faster and a little bit more cold. I think that's kind of who he's become. But I don't know. You had the thing though, Dex, with He played Eduardo.
Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield. You have the thing with him where you saying like,
Oh, my man, he should have been able to do so much more than what he's gotten to do post Social Network. Like he's a genuinely good actor, and he got stuck with those really shitty Spider-Man movies. The Amazing Spider-Man, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 stink. So that was supposed to be like his rocket ship, I guess, into stardom, and it flopped. But we really don't see any other like prestige projects for Andrew Garfield. He failed with the the big mainstream box office stuff. So it's just unfortunate that we just never got it all to come together for Andrew Garfield. And then it's the same thing with all some of the other characters in this movie too, like Brenda Song. We were all like, oh wow, the girl from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody who just played like the idiot. Like, oh wow, she's like in this really good prestigious movie, like she can do so much more now.
blowing some guy in a bathroom stall. Crazy.
Yeah, and then she just never did really anything else that anybody cared about. Timberlake, we were like, oh wow, Timberlake can actually act a little bit. This is cool. Maybe he'll do something else. And he did In Time, which we are the leading podcast in mentioning the movie In Time. I feel like we bring it up every single week for some reason, but yeah.
There was a moment though, and Ted, I don't know how you feel about Timberlake's performance. I think it's a lot to do with an Aaron Sorkin script and a David Fincher director. And David Fincher, historically known for doing like 30 takes on a scene, sometimes to the detriment of his actors and his crew. But it is by far the best that Justin Timberlake has ever been on film. And he's been in several movies now. There was a moment in time that people were like, yeah, Justin Timberlake's going to be the next actor musician crossover. What do you think about his performance?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you bring him up. So I actually in New York interned with Jonathan Demme, who worked. This was in 2011, so this is all about the same time. He directed Silence of the Lambs, and he actually brought in Timberlake to get a screening on understanding his acting ability. So I have gotten the chance to meet Timberlake right after all this. Justin Timberlake after this happened.
That is so cool.
And
light flex,
yeah.
light flex.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't the intent. It just I know that for a fact he got brought in to basically get screened for a role that Demme had the rights to at the time. But I think that role ended up being played by James Franco, and it got picked up by Hulu. It was the Stephen King 11/22/63.
Oh yeah.
But I know that Timberlake at one point was getting looked at potentially for a role in that film if it was going to be a movie versus a series.
That was in production all the way back in 2011.
Well, no, Demme held the rights to it, so
Okay.
that was and so it basically got kicked around, and then eventually it got the rights got transferred, and Franco took over, I believe.
So I mean, like it's interesting that you've seen. I mean, because there was a thing. It was like people were like, yeah,
For
he should have
sure.
been nominated for an Oscar, maybe. It was, I don't know. What did you think about it, the overall performances of the actors and stuff, and especially, I guess, Timberlake, because we've talked about Eisenberg.
Yeah, I think so. I do think that Justin Timberlake did a good job, especially because I think there was some criticism I remember at the time about like, well, it just seems like he's playing Justin Timberlake, and like that's kind of what he was supposed to do. And so I feel like he did a really good job. I think overall, the best acting through and through in the movie is probably done by Andrew Garfield.
Mhm.
I don't think that you ever have a moment where that doesn't feel realistic or authentic. And there's obviously several different moments where things are good. Throughout I would actually probably agree with you, although I kind of hate conceding this, that the King's Speech acting is slightly better. But I also feel like it required a little bit more given the circumstances. And so with this, the ensemble nature of this, it just turned out so brilliantly that it's hard to pick apart any like really like big flaw. I do think that there's a couple of moments, in the what are the houses called? Sorry, the
Dorms.
No, well, the clubs. Sorry, the clubs. That they're just that when they're hiding behind, or not hiding behind. Whenever Army Hammer and what's the other character's name? Like those interactions can be a bit campy.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah, the finals clubs.
Yes,
Clubs,
thank you. Finals,
whatever
thank
they
you.
are.
Yes, exactly. Like some of those interactions, like from their side of things between each other, felt a little campy. And like I know people who've been a part of whether it's a fraternity, sorority, or those types of clubs, and I'm like, that's a little over the top. But otherwise, yeah, it's just really hard to pick it apart.
There are parts in this movie where I was like, oh, that really does feel like college. And then there are parts that are like, has anyone ever been to college? There's a couple of parts like that where I can't really pick it out by name, but there's a couple of things where it's like, then you have to remember this movie was supposed to be based around 2004. And so things are just different.
Yeah. There were some things though where I was like, yeah, when I was in college, which my freshman year was 7 years ago now, which hurts. But
ow.
I know, right? When I was in college, if you go to college right now, like that Face Smash website is still popping off immediately. Like,
yep.
To this day. Do I feel proud about that I would participate in such a thing? No, I don't. But I got to be honest. I definitely
2013 still going down.
Yeah, I would have definitely been on there voting and sharing that shit. Like
that's such a great scene too, because it shows the juxtaposition and with 2021 eyes, it feels even worse because, you're sitting there going like, these poor women, that sucks ass, because it's just like, but you do have a point. Like it's spread because it's just dudes in college, and that's a terrible excuse, but it is one of those things where it's just like, have you seen this website? Have you seen this website? There's girls on here. That's the whole thing. And it's such a great juxtaposition of how the guys are reacting to it versus how when the women find out that they're on it is incredible.
They do, like, it's this thing again.
Great writing by
it
Sorkin.
Sets up like this version of Zuckerberg is like, he's doing it because he knows some people will think it's kind of cool. So he really doesn't care like how the women feel about it. Like he doesn't care who he hurts in the process. He just wants to look kind of cool. It's the same thing with like stealing Facebook. It's the same thing with, talking shit in all these depositions or whatever. It's the same thing with getting into a finals club. He doesn't care how he has to do it or, who he hurts to get there. People who he thinks are cool will think it's cool. So he's just going to do it anyway.
I will say this is, and I took actually a lot of notes on this. Surprisingly, I haven't taken notes in a long time, but this is very much a Sorkin script. You can tell from the jump is very much a Sorkin script where they're just talking at each other, and people have a little bit of a problem with Sorkin. Like, obviously he's great, but it is very much like, no, you do this. No, you do this. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to talk to you like this. Now, and it's just like, okay. Can we take a breath for a second?
Yeah, I think with this movie, it like you said, it's peak. Like it works so perfectly. I feel like the story is low key enough. The characters are like, the situations they're in are like simple enough that it all works. You get something like Trial of the Chicago 7 where everybody's doing the Sorkin thing and just talking super fast, and they're in a court trial. It's like, okay, let's relax. Like, like you can't do that for every single situation. Like, but for this one, I feel like it worked out perfectly. What do you think, Ted?
Ted, are you a Sorkin fan?
Yeah, I think so. I think, all right, not that I think so. I know I'm a Sorkin fan. I think the hard part sometimes, it's not like he hits every single time, but I feel like it's like people who get upset at Sorkin over time for like doing the same thing over and over again. It's like getting mad at LeBron for still being good at basketball. It's like that's kind of how this plays out. Like this is like
another triple double. Shit.
Like why would you get mad at Sorkin for leaning into what he's good at doing? And sometimes it's like, sometimes it's good. Sometimes, LeBron wins the ring. Sometimes he doesn't. But I feel like that's the best way to kind of surmise like my feelings towards Sorkin. I'm glad that not every film is written by him, but I'm also glad that he makes movies.
It's a very good point.
Yeah.
It's the same guy, and it couldn't have been given to a better person to write, because it's the same guy that cut his teeth
for sure
on courtroom drama. And you have to make, if you're going to make this movie, which, like we said, it's a deposition, and I don't know how the book is written. It may be kind of written a little bit more, but I guarantee you it's not as fast paced as a Sorkin script. I just guarantee you. And nobody would be able to make this more entertaining than Sorkin, which, you know, the one thing that everybody's seen from Sorkin, unfortunately, is the newsroom thing, where a guy's just listing off statistics about why America isn't the best country in the world. And that's sort of what this movie is. It's like, how much were your shares diluted down to? This. How much were you like, why do we care? Because it's the beats are there. The rhythm is there. And then all of a sudden it just hits you with, oh shit, he just lost so much money. And that's why we care. And it's so interesting that the rhythms work in that way. We got to talk about the score, though. We don't normally talk about the score about movies, but once in a lifetime, or not once in a lifetime, once every couple of decades, you get a score like a Star Wars or like an Indiana Jones, like John Williams, or Harry Potter, or Hans Zimmer with Inception and things like that, that just sticks at you. The basically scraping against the guitar, and the dun dun dun. I mean, that's a terrible portrayal of it, but it is one of the things where you know it when you hear it. You're like, Social Network, so good. It is incredible. It might be one of the best that I think I've ever heard.
Yeah, I feel like eventually we're gonna all have to disagree on something, but for now, like it's so good. It's hard to like find a fault with what they did with that soundtrack. I feel like I've done more work to that soundtrack than maybe any other soundtrack that's out there. And that initial one, I think they titled it "Hand Covers Bruise." It's just like you hear that immediately, I can see what's happening on screen. And also it feels like if you like ever listen to that, like on a walk or anything, it immediately elevates everything going on around you.
Yeah. You're in a movie now listening to that song.
Yes.
I love scores like that.
And you first hear that soundtrack, that score, when he's basically walking through the quad of going back to his dorm room. And it's just a dun, dun, and you just like, okay, what's happening? And he's just going to his dorm room.
It
Title
made
sequence.
Harvard look so fucking cool. Like if you actually go to the Harvard campus, it's like everything looks pretty old as shit. Like it's nice, but
Looks like an old college.
it just looks like an old college. But watching this movie, it's like, holy shit, Harvard is like the place to be. This is the coolest shit ever. Like everything is happening. Wow, what a time to be alive. Look at where we are.
Not to mention, Ted, that's one of the first hype videos I think I ever saw from you was had that score on it.
Yeah, I think I've used it more than once in different settings for sure. But I think that was the hype video that actually started my whole hype video thing. I don't know if anyone even cares to know that, but yeah,
we're a Baylor podcast for sure.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, the very first one that went, actually, it's not actually true, but the first one that I think went more mainstream outside of Baylor too, was that, Hey Baylor, let's do this.
Yeah. The blackout one.
Yeah. And it started off with this song and scrubby little Baylor to start, and then it was off to the races. And
yeah, I mean, it just, like, not to interrupt, but the score is like, and especially the like kind of the remix of especially the race scene too, the remix of that song. Yeah. That scene, we've talked about it. You talked about it a little bit. I feel like so many filmmakers have tried to copy that scene, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and I think others had tried it before and just hadn't hit the beat. It's like, you're onto something there. It's like someone had tried it, hadn't gotten there, and then we see it, and now we're hoping we see other people do it. I'm with you.
Nothing happens. Again, nothing happened. They lose a race. Yeah, a race that doesn't matter to you, the viewer, really.
It doesn't matter to the story at all. Like, there's no real point to having it there. It's just so fucking cool. Like,
this is, and I mentioned it just going off my notes. It feels like a Fincher crime thriller because of the way that we know what Fincher, because Fincher's done Seven, he did Fight Club, he did, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo this came after that movie, but so much of Fincher is dark, brooding, surrounded by a crime, surrounded by a mishap or what have you. It just feels like something bad is going to happen the entire time.
Yeah, it feels like we're on our way getting to the bottom of something, but we're not quite sure like what it's going to be. Like we're not figuring out a murder or something like that.
Mhm.
We're figuring out why is Eduardo suing Mark now? What the hell happened? And then we get that shares diluted scene, and it's like, oh shit. I mean, nothing like who cares? His shares got diluted, whatever. But like the way the movie sets it up, and then like you mentioned, the way the beats hit in that movie, in that scene, it's like, oh my god, his shares got diluted. What? Yo.
Yeah. I don't in it the biggest thing that this movie does really quickly, the biggest thing that this movie does is really make you care that about billionaires.
Yeah, I mean, Eduardo Safran, I guess he
has $2.4 billion. He moved to
he's worth billions. He moved to Singapore to avoid paying his taxes. But
Yes.
It's like, wow, poor little guy got screwed. Wow.
I mean, when you look at it and it's like Sean Parker, who didn't do it, according to this movie, didn't do anything, which I don't know if it's true or not. But Sean Parker, who didn't do half the stuff that Eduardo did to help found Facebook, gets 7%. And then the guy gets 0.03%, which is still more money than I will ever have, which is crazy to think. And you feel bad about that. It's an incredible testament to the filmmaking because you're like, oh man, that guy got
poor little
that billionaire.
Eduardo, man.
Yeah, that billionaire got screwed.
Yeah, you've got your like means to an end guy, which is Zuckerberg, and then Eduardo is like, I'm just trying to run a business here, and then you've got Sean Parker who really just wants to throw a party. Like that's really all he wants to do. And so it's interesting that you can find ways to relate to all those characters and feel for them in certain ways, because you even feel for Mark Zuckerberg in moments in this movie. It's so well written.
Well, especially towards the very end when after Eduardo, breaks his laptop and they have that falling out. And then he kind of looks at his card, and after Sean Parker gets arrested for cocaine and he's looking at his card and it says CEO bitch. And he's like, oh, it was kind of a moment. And it's a great performance by Eisenberg. On look on his face is like, oh, what have I done? Like that sort of thing. And then it basically ends. And with Rashida Jones delivering a great line of, you're not an asshole, you're just trying really hard to be, and then you're just kind of like, ouch, I feel bad for the guy kind of, because it doesn't seem like he has any friends.
Okay, I think I found the first thing that we disagree on, because I did not feel bad for Zuckerberg at the end at all.
Really?
And I took
to each his own. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason not to.
The scene with the CEO bitch card, I took it entirely differently. I was like, this is fucking Michael Corleone just like realizing, yeah, I just pulled off the fucking coronation murders. Like I set up.
Oh, you think he set up Sean Parker and stuff?
Absolutely.
Like that?
I mean, in terms of the movies universe, absolutely. It feels like he did. He definitely is the one that called the cops on that party. I mean, I don't know like how much of that is based on real life, whatever, blah blah blah. But like watching the movie, yeah, my man called the cops. He knew that they were going to be in there
that way.
He knew they were going to be in there with the coke, with the underage girls. Like he was like, "Yep, I'm not going to that shit. I'm gonna sit here, call the cops, get all my fucking money, get Sean Parker out of here."
I really did not. Ted, what do you think? Because I didn't interpret it that way at all. I thought it was like I got rid of my only real friend to side with Sean Parker. I, got these I'm CEO bitch cards that he said would make me cool, and it wasn't really all worth it. That's what I interpreted it as. I don't know, but that's a good point.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Royden. I don't know, Dex, if I mean, maybe if you're like really pushing some limits with the retrospective of what we have on Zuckerberg and the way that he's viewed in light of everything that's happened since then. But I don't know. I feel like there was a moment there where basically Sorkin and Fincher are trying to humanize him a bit to wrap up this thing towards the end of the movie.
Yeah, I can
But it
buy
doesn't mean
that
you have to
too.
feel. It doesn't mean you have to feel bad. Like feel bad for him. I totally
No.
understand if you're like, no, I don't feel bad.
Yeah, I mean, and Rashida Jones said the line about like it's a speeding ticket or whatever. Like, just pay him. You're gonna
Incredible.
be,
Incredible.
yeah, you're gonna be worth billions. Like, whatever. Who cares? So I was just kind of like, I was feeling like he's like, yeah, whatever. I'll just give them X amount of millions of dollars or whatever. They'll do whatever with it, but still my company. I'm like, I'm good. It's fine.
Just the I keep thinking of the Dave Chappelle thing where he's talking about the rap song. Ho, shut the fuck up. I just keep thinking of where he has that kind of money, and the speeding ticket line is incredible. I wrote that down at the end of the movie because it is true. Even I mean, uh, I think what he probably cared about the most is Eduardo getting his name back on the masthead. Is
Yeah.
probably what he cared about more than the 2.5 billion in shares that Eduardo had to be issued, or the 65 million. He probably cared more about the 65 million that the Winklevosses were paid for than that. And excuse me, and the speeding ticket line is so underrated because it's so true, knowing now how much money this guy is worth. And I can't get over it because it's such a true story in that fact, where it's like we still have to we're in this movie rooting for billionaires to fail or succeed. In the end, they've all won. So it's such a weird thing that this movie does.
Yeah, knowing Facebook is worth like $700 billion or whatever it is now, it's like, damn, it really was just a speeding ticket. Like, none of that shit matters at
Mm-mm.
all.
Well, and now you have the Winklevoss twins who are like heavily invested in the forefront of Bitcoin, and I've heard that's not doing too shabby at the moment. So
Oh
they
yeah,
they may be
totally
worth more than
terrible.
Zuckerberg sooner rather than later.
I think Bitcoin's trading on Robinhood at $33,000 a coin.
Yeah,
Let's see.
man, it's
Bitcoin right now
insane.
is currently $38,819 a Bitcoin.
God. Yeah, I invested in Dogecoin, so there's that.
To the moon.
Taking it to the moon. I got 1,000 shares of Doge at 2 cents. We're gonna take this thing to the moon. I joke, but I have made like $50 off of that initial investment, so that's actually kind of cool. Let's say okay. I can't get over the Justin Timberlake thing because I'm sitting here, and the more that I drink, I watching this movie, and the more that I've had tonight, I'm sitting here going, Justin Timberlake's just in this prestige
And he plays like an important part. And he does it
sexy
well.
back Justin Timberlake is in this movie convincing Mark Zuckerberg to move to California and doing cocaine and being just a real scumbag. And we're just like, yeah, I got it. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
It's initially shocking though, when he first kind of appears on screen and you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I remember there was actually I wish I could take credit for writing this line. I also slightly disagree with it because I thought he was good in the role, but it was something like just like the only thing that Sean Parker added to Facebook was dropping the that line was the only thing that Justin Timberlake brought to the movie. And I was like, ouch. But yeah, it is crazy that it maybe it doesn't seem as crazy now. I mean, he hasn't been in a ton, and like most of the stuff has been like Trolls and stuff like that.
Yeah, apparently
So-
Palmer's decent. The Palmer movie that came out is on Apple TV is pretty decent and stuff like that. Sorry to interrupt, but yeah,
you're good.
He's been in flops. Like Trouble with the Curves sucked. Like
Yeah. But like it at the time it was like they cast who and
Mhm.
why. So yeah, I don't know. It is weird to see his face. You know, it's almost like I don't know if you run into a movie where like someone like a cameo happens in the latter half, it's not quite as strong as this one because he comes up sooner. But like at the end of 1917, the war movie that came out a couple years ago, there's like
Yeah.
some major like cameos at the end that I'm like, wait, what's happening? Is the movie like just starting? Did I miss like why did like
the British Avengers show up and you're just like,
yeah,
oh shit,
right.
Every famous British person is here. What's happening?
Yeah, you're like, is the movie now starting? Like, what's going on? It wasn't to that level, but it easily could have been if it wasn't for the fact that his performance is good.
Or it could have been like The Weeknd being in Uncut Gems, where you're just like, dude, why the fuck is this happening?
Forgot about The Weeknd being in Uncut Gems, where they just like get in a fight. So that's it.
Yeah, he just like, fights over Julia Fox in the club. Like, thanks, The Weeknd.
Thank you, The Weeknd.
That dude performing in the Super Bowl tomorrow. What a time to be alive.
I think the guy that played Sean Parker had to be sleazy. And of course, they try to make him out almost like a paranoid schizophrenic, like he's not schizophrenic, but a paranoid person where people are out to get me. And, that's kind of
the kind of people that Facebook makes now.
Well, yes. But the thing with that is it's very interesting that they had that though through the lens of very handsome, very attractive Justin Timberlake being supposed to be in this sleazeball. I think if he was a little less good looking, the performance would have been even better. But because he's so good looking, like the paranoid doesn't come off. It's just kind of like they're out to get me. We're like, yeah, they are. It makes sense.
I think him being good looking is part of what, like convinces you, the viewer, that
it's definitely what they're going for.
Mark Zuckerberg should listen to that guy. He's cool. He fucks.
Guy's gotten laid before. We don't talk about enough about Napster though, how much that changed. But there is a line in here about when Zuckerberg is talking to the Winklevosses for the first time. He said, "Oh, you designed a website that pairs your music interests and finds songs that you like." So Zuckerberg, before he even came to Harvard, and he put out Spotify for free.
Yeah, I mean,
we talk about Napster a lot, or we don't talk about it enough, but that part is glanced over in the movie where he's just like, yeah, I basically invented what Spotify is, which Sean Parker actually happens to be invested in, believe it or not.
I can't believe that Sean Parker's not in jail.
Nah, he's just a billionaire, just thriving.
Living life.
But I don't. Okay, Ted, do you remember when did you graduate Baylor?
Well, I was in class 2012, but I graduated in December of 2011.
Okay, I was gonna say, because there's a slight line in this movie for all of our Baylor fans. Baylor is mentioned in this movie.
Yeah,
it was a big deal. Actually, I remember it was like written about in the Lariat. Which that's definitely deep cuts from the Baylor side of things there to bring up the Lariat. But they had the whole thing and they were so excited about us getting mentioned in this movie.
I remember my sister, who graduated, I think 2008. She came home to like in 2006 or 7 was like, oh, it was on Facebook. We're like, excuse me, what? Like, what is that? And that statement is so dated now. But it's so crazy that Baylor was one of the first ones in Texas, and eventually they were like, initially they were like, no. What?
Yeah, well, I feel like that's like a classic of people not knowing what's going on at the time, and then I will say that that strategy is like actually such a genius thing that they brought up in the movie to surround like an area and then like chip away. It's like a classic business strategy that happens, and like they were obviously doing it from this like social hierarchy standpoint. I thought that's super cool that they like brought that up, and it happens to be a Baylor related thing, so that's cool.
It's so funny that Baylor is mentioned in this movie, but I vividly remember my sister. I think she graduated in 2008, like I said, but she just coming home, just being like, yeah, it was on Facebook, or I met him through Facebook. I met my boyfriend. Like, what are we talking about? What is this website?
A book of faces, huh?
What? Like a yearbook? Like what? What is this? It's so crazy to think that just have that. It's like I would tell my kids that, and it'd be the equivalent of my dad being like, "We only had 3 channels." Like that's basically the equivalent. We lived in a time when there was no Facebook, or Facebook was only at like 5 colleges.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, like, one, how dumb simple Facebook was at the beginning compared to
Yeah.
what it is now. I mean, I think all of us like have a little different of a relationship than like the average person would with Facebook. Like, Roy, I know you have to use it for work, like being part of the news.
Yeah.
Ted, they're your competitors. Me, like, they're kind of like my lifeblood at my job. Like, I'm in marketing, and like my whole stick is marketing through Facebook. Like, they are my lifeblood when Facebook goes down, or like they have some shit like wrong with their, like, the business side of their platform. Like, my actual job is fucked up. So like thinking about our like interaction with Facebook now compared to, oh yeah, all my friends are on it, I want to see if this chick in my English class is single or not. It's like, damn, they've come so fucking far.
Original Facebook was fun. It's just the
Yeah,
whole
I mean,
thing.
Well, and when it came out, it was still cool. You know, that's another thing that's lost. When this movie came out, Facebook was still the place to be online.
Yeah, it's not like now my great grandfather, who was 101 before he passed away, had a Facebook. I swear.
Dang.
I mean, I believe you.
No, it's just a thing. Just you just had one. If you want to keep up with people now, and it's just like, oh, I haven't spoken to my high school friend in 10 years. I bet I can find him on Facebook.
Yeah, their level of ubiquity is just insane. Like, it's just part of how we all live life now. Like, you just can't separate it from the rest of the way we live life now. But for them, it was just like this cool little small thing just for harvard.edu emails, which, in retrospect, just sounds kind of awful, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's like imagining Facebook, but it's like only people at my relatively small college are on here. Like, no, I don't want that. No.
I did write their relationship status is revolutionary. And they
Change
even
the
talk
game.
about it in the movie, where Brendan Song's like, "Why are you single on your Facebook page?"
Game changed in that moment.
Ruining relationships for decades. That was like, why are you single? Oh, and the fact that it's complicated. Well, who thought of that?
Some scumbag that worked
Yeah.
at Facebook. Just like, I don't know.
Okay, we got to talk about it really quick, and then we'll move on to websites and stuff. But I got a couple more notes. What do you think about the Winklevoss's IP suit? Because do they have a point? I mean, obviously they won. They settled. Do they have a point? Or are you like Mark Zuckerberg? If you wanted to invent Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. What do we think?
Dex, you go first.
Okay. I get why they're mad, and I get why they got millions or billions or whatever they got. Like, I get it. Because, hey, man, you were supposed to be building a website for us, and then you just didn't, and built another website that's like kind of similar. But also, it's like, yeah, guys, y'all's little shitty idea, I took it and I made it. It's like that scene in Mad Men where Don Draper's talking to what's her name, and she's like, "You stole my idea." And he's like, "You had a kernel of an idea. I made a commercial." Like, that's what the money's for. Scene, yeah. Like, you had a kernel of an idea. I made a actual social network that is good and valuable, and you can suck my dick. Like, so I would have to side with Zuckerberg on that one, but I could see why they're mad. I would be mad if I were them too.
Royden, what's your thoughts?
I just I'm kind of with Dex because like I get how IP law works, kind of like that, but there's also, I mean, there. This is the one thing where I don't side with Zuckerberg on the Eduardo deposition and court hearings and things like that, because guy got shafted out of a company that he funded basically from the ground up. But this, where I'm like, the line of, if your clients want to stand on my shoulders and call themselves tall, they have every right to do so, but it doesn't give them the right to lie. That's the one time in this movie where I'm like, yeah, that's a point. But he did get just the seed of an idea from them. So that probably entitles them to a little compensation, but they didn't invent Facebook. They weren't even close. They were going to do a Harvard thing that you could connect with other Harvard people in like fraternities or something like that.
Yeah, they made like a school project level idea, and he took it to everything else that it became.
Now, granted, did his things just like start at Harvard and then they moved to like Boston College and Boston University and all that stuff? Yes, but there's a grander idea at play here than just what they literally wanted was, what was it called? What did they want to do? What was Harvard Connection or whatever they called it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So it's just, and could they have sold that to the university and other universities and made a lot of money? Who's to say? Probably. But if you wanted to invent Facebook, you would have invented Facebook. I kind of agree. It's shitty to say to side with Zuckerberg, but yeah.
Where you at, Ted?
Yeah, well, it's such a complicated thing in terms of like letter of the law. Like, probably almost best to not litigate it because it sort of was. And settling almost always means there's some implied guilt, especially in a situation like this. However, there's a really good quote that like I've often like lean on in various other like settings, especially around work. And it's like, strategy is a commodity and execution is art. And I feel like in this instance, it's a pretty good way that this has been lived out. Strategy, like what they've said that they're going to do, is just, it's a commodity. Anyone can have that. But what Zuckerberg does is actually execute it. It is art. And I think, and this is kind of what's interesting about just the way that his arc is in this movie, even if it doesn't play out as cleanly in real life, is it's very clear that like what Zuckerberg or Jesse Eisenberg's character in this movie is like really trying to accomplish is like, I got to get to the end of this, like no matter what it is, because this is inevitable. Not to quote Thanos, but just like,
well, I mean, he's about as close as you're gonna get.
Yeah. So, but like, this is an inevitability that like the world's going to have this. And if like we would have like dink and dunked around here and like made these little like one-off sales, or didn't move to like California, or didn't make all these different moves, like we were just going to be behind. So there's some points to be made on Zuckerberg's side as well, as like, if it wasn't for my leadership, this wouldn't be worth what it is anyway. So it's just such a fascinating thing whenever you think about it. And I think it's what makes for such a compelling movie.
A very good point, because you see him searching for like, we got to get to the next. He's chasing that rabbit the entire movie, and it is kind of interesting where we end up, where it's just like it's unsettled because he's going to continue to chase it, even though his end goal was to keep it moving this entire time and get to be this huge thing. But that is a good point of him sitting there going, if we're like, he didn't even have time for Eduardo to like look for advertising agencies in New York. He's like, we gotta get with what's his face in Los Angeles. I forget even the first angel investor had his name pulled up, but he has a meeting with him. We're doing that instead. So yeah, that's a very good point. Any other thoughts on this movie? Let me see here. I thought the uncanny valley at first with the twins was a little weird when they first brought them in. That was a little strange, but we don't really have to talk about that. Is Bill Gates actually in this movie? Was that Bill Gates? Or was a Bill Gates lookalike?
When
when they first meet the girls, they're at a Bill Gates presentation.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Talking about the people that were on the Harvard Facebook at first was like 2 Nobel Prize winners and a movie star. It's just a little bit of trivia. That movie star was probably Natalie Portman.
Okay, so I just
It
found
is
out that was
not Bill Gates.
not actually.
Ugh.
Yeah, yeah. I was down the rabbit hole there. Sorry. Apparently,
Not
Dex
Bill
was
Gates.
too. Yeah.
Dakota Johnson's just in this movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
shout out.
Oh, this is the one.
That was the most Dakota Johnson comment I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I mean,
Um,
that's Dakota Johnson for you.
The one of my favorite underrated moments in this movie that I had kind of forgotten about was the president of Harvard treating the Winklevosses like they were idiots.
Dude, I had to text the group chat about that when I was watching this movie. I was like, can you imagine Linda Livingstone just talking down to students like that in her office? Holy shit.
I wouldn't do anything. I mean, these guys had enough temerity and gall to just continue to feel entitled enough to continue with this thing. But if like the president of a university was like, this is stupid, go home, I'd be like, okay.
You're wasting my time, you raggedy bitch. Get out of here.
The underrated part of the movie.
Yeah, when they were, I forget what he said, but he was like, he was like, you signed the honor code with the university or whatever. You
With the
don't
universe, not
have a
with
contract
students.
with the other students. He goes, I don't know what that means. That saddens me. You
That's
piece
sad.
of shit. I can't believe you're in this school, you dumbass.
Oh my God. From the jump, he was very hostile. But yeah, that's a great part of this movie. All right. Ted, any other lasting thoughts on this movie? Okay, wait, sorry. One more question and then we'll wrap up. Would you like a sequel, Ted?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if I get the same characters and I get, you throw in some new ones. But I mean, who's not here to watch someone portray Ted Cruz interrogating Mark Zuckerberg?
Just things he just doesn't know about.
I'm trying to think of who plays Ted Cruz to interrogate Jesse Eisenberg, but I have a feeling we're getting another Facebook movie in the next decade or two. That's for sure.
I say all the time that I definitely want a Facebook sequel about. I mean, there's so many things you can make it about. You can make it about like them buying Instagram. Like I watched a Fincher movie about that. Obviously, like the whole 2016 thing. You can make movies about that. You can make a movie about what just happened in the like last year with the Section 230 hearings and all of that kind of stuff. Like there's so much content around Facebook. Like we need more social network movies, and I want Eisenberg to keep playing Zuckerberg. But I mean, knowing now that he's not like that at all, we didn't really know Zuckerberg in 2010, but having to see him so much now, knowing he's not like
His
what
portrayal.
Eisenberg portrayed, I still want more Eisenberg playing Mark Zuckerberg. I love it. I want more.
The only way that I would like a sequel. Go ahead, Ted.
No, just to say that there's 2.8 billion users of Facebook every month. So like there's so many stories you can come up with.
Oh God. The only way that I would like another Zuckerberg based Facebook movie is if Eisenberg, Fincher, and Sorkin are back. It's the only way, because without that, it loses it. There's also a thing too with this, that it was in 2010. We talked about this way at the very beginning. It was still a novelty, sort of. And you said, Ted, it was still cool. And now it just holds such a different weight that I don't know if I want to watch it. You know what I mean?
That's a fair take. I get that.
It's there is like, I I don't know if I want to sit there and be like, oh shit, this really did ruin people's perceptions of reality and like cause election fraud. Like, I don't know if I want it. Like, it's just sad. Like, I don't know if I want to do it. But all that to say, if Eisenberg, Fincher, and Sorkin would come back for it, yeah.
Yeah, you need a little bit of distance because like they made that movie Bombshell like in 2019 about like Trump and Megyn Kelly and the Fox News scandal and all that. And it was like, okay, yeah, we're still in this. This is a little weird. Like I don't love it. But I think once you get a little bit more distance than like what that movie had, because they made a 2019 movie about some shit that happened in like 2015. But once you get a little bit further out than that, and we're like on the other side of it, truly, I
Mhm.
feel like movies about the 2016 election and like all the shit that happened will be extremely good once we're like
That's a
once we're in a place where we can like look back on it and laugh a little bit. Movies will be good about it.
yeah. Any lasting thoughts, parting thoughts? Then we'll do website draft.
Before we do that, though, Ted, I do kind of want to pick your brain. You are our social network guy here. So, I mean, obviously, we've been talking about, you know, Facebook used to be cool. Now it's not cool. You work at the cool social network. So, what's it like trying to be on that cutting edge now with so many other different things going on? I know you work, or I know you used to work at least with like video and stuff on the platform. And obviously, that's like a big competitive thing right now. Every social network site has like video capabilities and stuff now. So what's it like trying to be on that cutting edge working at a social network now?
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and you know, it's interesting just like looking back at this movie and like kind of understanding where I'm at now versus when I was in college and seeing this for the first time. One of the things that's most interesting is like there's this, you have to have this like really weird healthy balance of like how much what you do and how much you like create impacts people in their day-to-day life without getting this idea that like it's so important that it's like beyond anything else in existence. Because I think that what you'll find often, and particularly in Silicon Valley, and this is not anything new, and I'm happy to critique myself and my colleagues and stuff as well in this regard, where there's a lot of like importance placed on like what's happening, because is a lot of change and movement in the world that happens, right, as a result of decisions that are made. So I think it's like, first of all, approaching every problem that way, knowing, and you know, I don't want to get here and start, you know, talking up. I'm not going to try to defend Zuckerberg necessarily here. I'm also not going to like completely like demean him here or anything either. And I one of the things I've appreciated about the way Jack Dorsey has been doing a lot of stuff at Twitter, and this is by no means just, I'm not like getting paid. I guess I'm getting paid to do this, but I'm not really, like, I didn't have to share it. But I think that there is a level of humanity that's actually brought into the decisions. I'm sure people disagree, and like I could go into defending that like in little bitty details here and there. But ultimately, what's really interesting and fascinating to me about like the space I get to play in every day is that like it's not like there are rules necessarily put in front of me all the time. Like a lot of times I have the opportunity to like think about something completely different and invent upon it. There's like a culture of that already exists, which is really, really unique and fun. It's a fun place to work and be involved in that kind of stuff, because you do have the ability. It's not like this has been done before. We don't have like any precedent. It's not like companies have been able to like create this way that we can all have conversations instantly, like globally. I mean, it won't be long. We know we're testing Twitter Spaces, where it might be that you're moving, instead of doing this on YouTube, you'll be, you know, streaming it there. You're live doing a one take pod in Twitter Spaces, and it's just fun to mess with that kind of stuff, and it's to see how that evolves. You could be doing it and you're like, hey, someone wants to join, that'd be really interesting, and you never knew they were going to be joining your podcast, and then they're on. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to, I think, come down the line. And you didn't have that before. This, like, there wasn't a lot of like free-willing thinking, because it's just so much more accessible to be to forward thinking. But again, you have to always kind of come back to this like grounded reality of like everyone else's jobs and the things that people are doing are also very important. It's not like I just like, I kind of get tired of seeing like this like self-importance or like we're changing the world mantra. I don't know if either one of you have ever watched the show Silicon Valley.
Yes.
But it's so fantastic. It's such a good parody, and I catch myself at times acting in some ways, like some of the talk that happens there. Unfortunately, we're all remote now, and I don't get food in the office anymore. But every scene that happens in the cafeteria there in Silicon Valley is really, really funny to me because it feels pretty real.
The first couple of seasons of that show are elite television, and it's pretty on the nose. I feel like, I mean, I'm not a Silicon Valley guy, but just from what I've seen, it yeah, feels pretty accurate. But the thing that you have to realize with social media, and yes, like especially Facebook, like you said, 2.8 billion people are on it, so it does affect half of a population. You know, not even half, but like it affects a huge portion of the population. It like at some point you still got to go to like whatever happens on social media. You got to go to work. You gotta go, you know, you gotta feed your kids, you know,
Right.
like the self-importance of people, especially, and not for nothing on your website. And I'm active. Dex and I are the most active people on Twitter, where it's just like, man, whatever's happening on here is the most important thing that's going on right now. No, like,
Right.
you know, like people on social media like to think that it's the most important thing that is happening in the world. And I feel like that in the context of the movie, it does a really good job. And I don't think they knew that they were doing this at the time and making people obsessed with this thing that it's now in your pocket. But and I tap away literally. I don't think they knew that they were doing that within the confines of this movie. And I don't even think in 2010, when they were making this movie and Sorkin was writing the script, that he knew where this would go from here. It doesn't hold a candle to everybody's everyday life of, I got to put food on the table and I got to still go to work, and it doesn't matter what somebody wrote or said. It just does not matter. And that's such a weird thing that we are in right now in life. It just doesn't matter. Really? I don't know. It's tough to say that because then I'm going to go on Twitter and somebody's going to say something I don't like. And can you fucking believe? But like, I don't know.
And you're one of the blue check people, so you you matter way more than the rest of us.
Yeah, exactly. My 1,000 followers really drive the conversation.
Yeah, I can't believe that you survived the debadging, you know, that happened last month.
Oh, the debadging?
There was a debadging.
Yeah, though there was a few people, because there was a few people that lost. There was like people complaining about it. It wasn't like a ton of people. It happened. Yeah, there's a few.
If anybody needs to be debadged, it's me. I just ask people like what they want for Shipleys and Canes. Like that's what like.
I'll never forget that day though, when like all the verifieds got shut down because of the hackers or whatever. So Royden couldn't tweet.
I couldn't tweet.
Royden's the only verified person that I actually like know. So just getting text from him like, guys, I can't fucking tweet right now.
I had to go on our podcast Twitter and be like, this is how I'm looking at Twitter right now. But yeah, it's verified. Means nothing for me. It means my tweets show up on like Google faster than some people's tweets. Yeah. I tweet about sports.
So Ted, one more question that I have no idea what level of insight you'll be able to give us, just because, you know, it's a sensitive topic.
I'm so excited about where this is going.
You know, we just gotta ask, what was it like working at Twitter while Trump got banned?
I mean, you asked. I'm going to defer you to our policy page.
Oh, man.
Fair enough. I respect it.
All right.
That was one of the greatest days in Twitter history, in my opinion. I want to applaud you personally for whatever little sway you might have had in that opinion, or like that discussion, which I'm sure was very little, but like, just what a day. Just thank you for that gift to me personally. I felt blessed.
Ted's like, shut the fuck up.
Twitter making that decision. Yeah, we'll move off of it. But you know, what a day. What a time.
What a time to be alive. All right, pause real quick.
I gotta make us a draft order here.
Yeah. Will this get cut out?
Yeah, it'll get cut out. Let me,
So how long does that go? Because I got to run here in about 10.
oh, okay. If you need to hop off, me and Royden can just we can just do it on our own and just have you go off. I think we're just gonna just kind of talk shit about all the websites for a little bit.
Okay. If you don't mind, yeah, because tomorrow is a Super Bowl and I do a lot of the video ad work. We've got a couple of things that are popping up right now. So
Okay.
that's the side part of working at a company like that is it's never really off. Twitter is not off ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do we want to do like an official closeout or am I good to?
You good to drop out? You gotta go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if
we
that's
can just
okay.
have you like, you know, plug whatever you want to plug real quick.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
send
Ted
you
has
off.
got a 3, 2, 1. I mean, I don't know who's editing. I guess Jake is editing this real quick. Ted, thank you for coming on. What's your at? Where can people find what you're working on? Obviously at Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. You can give me a follow at TedVid. That's short for video. You can also give a follow to the at Art House handle. I work for the Twitter Art House team. Basically just helping brands with their ads. I lead our production team globally, which is super fun and super cool. So a lot of nerdy stuff about ads, merging research and creative in that regard. And so if you're following me on Twitter, it's going to be basically Baylor Sports, some advertising and video work and discussion, something random, of course, and then naturally, got to talk a little bit about film. So that's what you'll find there. Hopefully I'll see you guys around. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. It was fun just to kind of hang out and talk about the social network. Obviously in the future, I'll try to have more answers for you on difficult questions, Dex.
Well, there's a couple of things. Thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Good luck with your draft.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that was Ted Vid. Let's see.
All right, I'm just stopping real quick and then saving some. I'm just going to do this while I am with you guys, if that's